The wind howled across the icy plains of Kepler 4552c. Snow and frost swirled in the dim light of the planet's twin suns, painting everything in shades of silver and blue. Dr. Elias Harper pulled his heavy coat tighter, pressing his face into the hood of his suit. His breath formed clouds in the freezing air, and each step sank slightly into the soft, frosted ground. The research outpost was still a few kilometers away, a small cluster of metallic structures that gleamed in the weak sunlight. Elias had been sent here to study the planet's strange ecosystem. Scientists had detected unusual energy readings coming from beneath the ice, suggesting the presence of life forms unlike anything found on Earth. While other researchers hesitated to leave the safety of the outpost, Elias had volunteered for the expedition. He liked the cold. He liked the quiet. Most of all, he liked discovering the unknown. As he navigated the icy ridges, his scanner beeped softly. A faint, irregular heat signature appeared on the display. Elias paused, staring at the small blip. It was alive. Whoever, or whatever, was out there was small but detectable even in the freezing conditions. He adjusted the scanner and moved carefully toward the signal. The snow crunched under his boots as he descended into a shallow ravine. And then he saw her. She was lying in the snow, partially covered by frost. At first, Elias thought she was human, but the moment he saw her markings, he knew she was something else entirely. Her skin shimmered faintly, like it had tiny threads of light running beneath the surface. Bioluminescent lines ran along her arms and neck, glowing softly even in the dim sunlight. Her hair was long and silver, spread out across the snow, and her eyes, when she opened them briefly, shone like liquid sapphires. Elias's heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement. He had read about alien life forms before, seen images from other planets, but this was real, alive, and hurt. He approached slowly, careful not to frighten her. I'm a doctor," he said softly, his voice carried faintly by the wind. "I can help you." She tried to move, but a sharp gasp escaped her lips. Blood stained her clothing, and frostbite had already begun to set in on her exposed skin. Her eyes widened as they met his, and for a moment, the world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. Elias knelt beside her, taking off his pack to retrieve a first aid kit. "It's okay," he whispered. "I won't hurt you. I just need to bandage your wounds." She flinched, but did not resist. There was intelligence in her gaze, an almost unsettling awareness that seemed to look through him rather than at him. Elias could feel her observing him as he worked. He carefully cleaned the gash on her shoulder, his fingers shaking slightly from the cold and adrenaline. "You're not human," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. Her eyes narrowed slightly and she tilted her head. "Do you realize, human," she said, her voice calm yet commanding, "that I'm not an ordinary person?" Elias froze. The words echoed in his mind, strange and impossible, yet spoken with such certainty that he couldn't dismiss them. I can see that," he managed to say, trying to keep his voice steady. She studied him for a long moment as if deciding whether he was a threat. Finally, she let out a slow breath and nodded. "I am Leora," she said. "And you are Elias Harper. I can sense your thoughts, human. Your curiosity, your fear, your honesty. It is unusual." Elias swallowed hard. You can sense my thoughts?" She gave a small, almost imperceptible smile. "In a way, my people have abilities you cannot imagine. But for now, you must know only that you helped me. That alone makes you remarkable." He felt a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Why are you here?" he asked, gesturing toward the frozen plains around them. "Were you attacked?" Leora's gaze darkened slightly, and her hand brushed her side where a deep gash had bled through her clothing. "Yes, predators! They are not like anything humans have faced. I fled here, and I was injured. You found me. That is fortunate." Elias worked quickly, wrapping the bandages tightly, making sure she would not lose more heat or blood. As he did, he noticed the subtle movements beneath her skin, the faint glow pulsing along her veins, almost like energy flowing in patterns he could not comprehend. "You are incredible," he murmured. "I've never seen anything like you." "And yet," she replied, her voice softening, "you are also remarkable. Your kind survives in the harshest conditions. You adapt, you think, you care." The wind picked up suddenly, whipping snow across their faces. Elias shivered and pulled his coat tighter around both of them. Leora let him do it, her strength weakened but her presence still commanding. He could sense the tension in her body, the cautious awareness that she was not completely safe even now. Why are you glowing?" he asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "It is not just for show," she explained. "My kind communicates through energy. We can sense intentions, detect danger, even influence the physical world in ways you do not yet understand. You helped me willingly. That means something to us?" Elias nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of her words. He had always known humans were clever, inventive, and brave, but standing here with an alien who could perceive thoughts and energies, he realized how small his understanding of the universe truly was. For a moment, silence fell between them. The wind roared, snow whipped around their faces, and the icy plains stretched endlessly in every direction. Yet in that silence, a bond began to form, a fragile trust born from need and kindness. "I should be able to stand soon," Leora said finally, her voice quieter now, almost human in its softness. "But we must move. The predators may still be near." Elias helped her slowly to her feet. Her body was light, surprisingly so, and he could feel a faint warmth radiating from her. She leaned on him slightly, not because she needed it, but because it allowed her to test his reaction, to see if he was trustworthy. "You saved me," she said, "and I will not forget it." Elias managed a small smile. "And I won't forget you either." Together they began the slow, careful trek back toward the research outpost. Every step was a challenge in the freezing wind, but Elias kept glancing at her, fascinated by her presence. Her glowing markings pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, in rhythm with the wind and snow around them. He had never seen anything so beautiful, so alien, so alive. As they moved, Leora spoke quietly about the planet, about the predators, and about things Elias could hardly believe. Her knowledge was vast, her understanding of the universe deep. Yet she spoke without arrogance, as though her abilities were natural and her life's purpose intertwined with the fates of other beings. Elias listened, absorbing every word. Despite the strangeness of the situation, he felt a growing sense of purpose. He realized that this encounter was no accident. Somehow he had been chosen, not by chance, but by fate, to meet Leora, to help her, and perhaps to witness the beginning of something extraordinary. By the time they reached the edge of the outpost, the sun had dipped lower, casting long shadows across the icy plains. The lights of the station flickered in the distance, a beacon of warmth and safety. Leora paused, looking back at the endless white that stretched behind them. "Human," she said, her voice carrying a hint of curiosity and respect. "Do you understand what you have done? You have changed the course of more than one life today?" Elias shook his head slowly, still overwhelmed. I was just helping you. That's all I could do." She smiled faintly, a gesture both alien and familiar. "Perhaps. But that is all that matters. Sometimes the smallest acts of courage, of kindness, define the greatest events. Together they entered the outpost. Scientists and researchers were startled to see her, her glowing markings illuminating the entrance like starlight. Yet Elias felt no fear, only wonder, only anticipation. For the first time in his life, he realized that the universe was far larger, far stranger, and far more incredible than he had ever imagined. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that this was only the beginning. The inside of the research outpost smelled of warm metal and recycled air. Machines hummed softly, casting a pale glow over the narrow corridors. Elias led Leora into one of the main labs, careful to keep her close. The scientists inside froze at the sight of her. Her glowing lines pulsed faintly in the dim light, and her presence radiated an energy that felt almost alive. "Everyone calm down," Elias said quickly, placing a hand on her arm. "She is not dangerous. She needs help." Leora's eyes flicked toward him, curiosity evident in the depths of her gaze. "Your people are cautious," she said softly, her voice carrying a melodic tone that seemed to vibrate gently in the air. "It is good. Caution keeps you alive." Elias guided her to a medical bed. He began removing the outer layers of her damaged clothing to treat the wounds further, and the scientists reluctantly stepped closer, offering equipment and supplies. None spoke. No one dared to. Leora's presence was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Once her wounds were stabilized, she sat up slightly, eyes scanning the room. "I can heal, but it takes time," she explained. "I will need rest, and your kind's assistance is helpful. Your touch is steady, human." Elias nodded, brushing the hair back from his face. "I just did what I could. But who are you, really? Your markings, your abilities, they are not like anything we've seen before." Leora's gaze softened, and she leaned back, glowing lines dimming slightly as she exhaled. "I am of a race that has observed your kind for many generations. Humans are fascinating." Elias's brow furrowed. "Observed us? You mean you've been watching Earth?" "Yes," she said simply. "And other human colonies. Your species is young in the universe, but your potential is rare." He blinked, trying to process the words. "Potential? I don't understand. We're just humans. We make mistakes, we fight, we survive. That's it." Leora smiled faintly, a gesture that was both gentle and commanding. "Your survival is not mere chance. It is your creativity, your adaptability, your courage. These are the qualities that mark a species that can rise above adversity." Elias felt a flush of pride, though he tried to mask it. "So, you're saying we have something other species don't?" "Yes," she replied. "Something unique. Something extraordinary." The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Elias looked at her, trying to see her as just a being in need of care, but he could feel the truth in her presence. She radiated intelligence, confidence, and a history that stretched far beyond his understanding. "Why are you here, then?" he asked carefully. "Why come to this planet?" Her expression grew serious. "I fled from a threat. There is a faction, humans might call them invaders, that seeks to dominate and control life across many star systems. They are coming, and they do not understand subtlety, negotiation, or restraint. They act with force and with cruelty." Elias felt a chill run down his spine. "They're coming here? To human colonies?" Leora nodded slowly. "Yes, and this planet is not random. It contains resources they need, energy sources unlike any other. If they succeed, it would give them power to threaten entire regions of human space." His mind raced. He had spent his life studying life forms, not war. And yet, he felt a strange sense of responsibility. Somehow, he had been drawn into something much bigger than himself, much bigger than any human research mission he had ever known. "You," he said slowly, "you're powerful. Why would you need us?" Leora's eyes softened, but there was a firm edge to her tone. "Because your kind is unpredictable. Your creativity is unmatched. Where I can act with precision, humans act with imagination. Where I see one possibility, you see many. That is why you matter." Elias swallowed hard. He had never thought of himself, or his species, in such terms. Humans were clever, yes. But extraordinary? It seemed impossible. And yet, standing before Leora, he felt a flicker of pride mixed with awe. Over the next hours, Elias and the scientists examined Leora, trying to understand her physiology. Her blood glowed faintly, carrying energy in ways they could not detect with conventional sensors. Her senses were heightened. She could anticipate movements before they happened, and her reflexes were beyond human limits. Yet she moved with grace, never wasting energy, never showing signs of fatigue even after the long journey in the ice. As they worked, Leora spoke of her people, a race that had existed quietly at the edges of the galaxy for millennia. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, intervening only when absolutely necessary. Humans were new, young, and volatile, but they had qualities that fascinated her kind: courage, ingenuity, and the ability to think beyond survival. "You humans are dangerous to yourselves," she said at one point, "because you act on instinct and curiosity. Yet that same combination can make you remarkable. You create tools, solve problems, and survive circumstances others would consider impossible." Elias listened closely. "So, you've been watching us for a long time?" "Longer than you realize," Leora said. "We have seen your species develop from simple tools to interstellar travel. We have observed your conflicts, your alliances, your failures, and your triumphs, and we have waited." "Waited for what?" he asked, leaning forward. "For a time when humans would be ready to stand with others in the galaxy. A time when your courage and creativity would be needed to face forces that are beyond your current understanding." Elias's stomach tightened. He had always believed humans were capable of great things, but he had never thought of their potential on a galactic scale. Yet Leora's confidence in him, and in all of humanity, made it feel possible. As the evening deepened, Leora's injuries slowly healed with the help of her own regenerative abilities and the humans' care. She grew stronger, her glow more vibrant, her energy more controlled. Yet there was an edge of urgency in her demeanor. "They will come sooner than you think," she warned. "The invaders are methodical but not subtle. They do not hide well. If they discover this planet first, the consequences will be severe." Elias felt a surge of determination. "Then we have to be ready," he said. "We can't let them take this planet, or the colonies." Leora studied him for a long moment, her glowing eyes piercing. "You are brave, human. That is clear, but bravery alone is not enough. You must learn to think beyond fear, to act with reason, intuition, and imagination. That is how your kind survives challenges others cannot." He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He understood the responsibility now. He was no longer just a scientist studying life forms. He had been drawn into a larger story, a story where humans could play a vital role. Over the next few days, Elias worked closely with Leora. He learned about her abilities, about her people, and about the invaders she warned him of. She taught him subtle ways to observe, to anticipate, and to plan. He began to see the value of human unpredictability, the ability to adapt, improvise, and act when others might freeze. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the icy horizon, Leora stood beside Elias at a large observation window. The snowfields stretched endlessly before them, sparkling in the fading light. Tell me, human, she said softly, what do you see when you look at your species? Elias thought for a moment. I see hope. I see people who can endure, who can build, who can rise to challenges even when the odds are against them. She smiled faintly, her glow pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Then perhaps your species is ready to stand not just for survival but for something greater, something that could shape the galaxy. Elias shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of the revelation. Humanity had always seemed small and fragile in the universe, but with Leora's guidance, with her knowledge, and with their own courage, perhaps humans could rise to meet challenges that had seemed impossible. That night, as the outpost lay quiet and the winds howled outside, Elias and Leora planned. They mapped potential threats, analyzed possible strategies, and considered how humans could use their ingenuity to protect the colonies and the planet. Elias realized that Leora's presence had changed everything. She had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never imagined. Humans were no longer just observers of the universe. They had a chance, maybe even a responsibility, to act, to protect, and to grow. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the real adventure was only beginning. The frozen plains outside the outpost were silent, but the quiet was deceptive. Elias Harper stood near the observation window, scanning the horizon through the reinforced glass. The twin suns cast long shadows over the icy landscape, and the wind howled across the empty fields. For days he had felt an uneasy tension in the air, as if something unseen was watching, waiting. Leora stood beside him, her glowing markings pulsing softly in the dim light of the control room. She had recovered quickly, her energy returning at a pace that amazed Elias. She did not speak at first, simply observing the horizon with her sharp, intelligent eyes. Then she said, "They are coming." Elias stiffened. "The invaders?" She nodded. "Yes, they are methodical but not patient. Their arrival is imminent. You must be ready, human. Your kind's strength lies not in power, but in unpredictability, creativity, and courage." He swallowed hard. "We'll try. But how can we stop them? We're just humans." Leora's eyes softened. "Humans are capable of more than you know. I have observed your kind for generations. You survive in conditions that would destroy others. You create solutions from the impossible, and you are adaptable. That is why you matter." Elias nodded, determination building inside him. He began organizing the scientists and technicians at the outpost. Together, they fortified the station, prepared emergency defenses, and gathered data about the planet's terrain. Leora assisted him, offering guidance and insight into the best ways to defend themselves. "The terrain favors us," she explained, pointing to a holographic map. "These ridges and valleys will slow their advance. You can use this. Your traps, combined with my abilities, will give us an advantage." Elias studied the map. He could see it clearly now: narrow passes, hidden crevices, and unstable ice formations. With careful planning, they could create obstacles and surprises that the invaders would not anticipate. As night fell, a deep hum resonated across the plains. Elias's scanner flickered violently. "They're here," he whispered. Leora's glow intensified, illuminating the control room. "Stay calm, human. Fear clouds judgment. Focus on strategy." From the observation window, they saw the first of the invaders emerging from the icy haze. They were not like any human or alien species Elias had ever seen. Their bodies were covered in dark metallic armor, and strange energy weapons pulsed at their sides. They moved with precision and coordination, advancing steadily toward the outpost. Elias's heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Everyone to your positions," he ordered. "Remember what we practiced. Follow the plan." Leora stepped forward, her presence commanding yet calm. She raised her hands slightly, and a soft, shimmering shield formed around the outpost. It was not a permanent defense, but it created a barrier that disrupted the invaders' sensors. "This will give you time," she said. "Use it wisely." The first wave of invaders reached the outer perimeter. Elias watched as his carefully placed traps activated. Ice spikes shot from hidden vents, and sonic emitters sent disorienting waves of sound. Several invaders were slowed, stumbling over the obstacles. Elias felt a surge of hope. Human ingenuity was working. But the invaders adapted quickly. They analyzed the traps, finding ways around them with efficiency that sent a chill down Elias's spine. He realized that brute force alone would not stop them. They needed strategy, and they needed to think like the invaders while remaining unpredictable. "Elias," Leora said, her voice calm but urgent. "They are strong, but they cannot anticipate the unexpected. Humans excel at that. Use your environment, think creatively, act when they least expect it." Elias nodded. He moved through the outpost, coordinating teams, adjusting defenses, and improvising as the situation evolved. Scientists who had been timid before now worked with confidence, setting traps, redirecting power, and creating diversions. Leora's guidance gave them an edge, but it was their own decisions, their own quick thinking, that made the difference. As the invaders breached the first barrier, Leora acted. She moved with incredible speed, her glowing markings leaving trails in the air as she created force fields, deflected attacks, and healed minor injuries among the humans. Elias watched in awe, noting how her power amplified their efforts rather than replacing them. Humans were still the ones making the choices, taking risks, and acting unpredictably. One invader broke through a reinforced door, advancing toward the lab. Elias took a deep breath and activated a defensive mechanism he had improvised, a pressure plate that released a cloud of freezing vapor. The invader stumbled, slowed by the sudden cold, and Elias seized the moment to push it back, using its own momentum against it. "Good thinking!" Leora shouted, her voice carrying over the chaos. "That is what I mean! Humans turn obstacles into advantages!" Hours passed, and the battle continued. The invaders were relentless, but Elias and the humans grew more confident with each encounter. They used the terrain, improvised traps, and Leora's guidance to slow the enemy. Every successful defense reinforced the belief that humans were capable of extraordinary feats. During a brief lull in the battle, Elias and Leora stood on a ridge overlooking the battlefield. The wind cut through their clothing, but neither seemed to notice. "You are remarkable, human," Leora said softly, her glow steady. "Not because of strength, but because of your ability to think, to adapt, to act when necessary. That is why your species survives, why your species will continue to rise." Elias shook his head, still catching his breath. "I never thought of it that way. I always thought we were fragile, limited, ordinary. But seeing all of this, seeing what humans can do when we work together, it feels different, powerful, in a way I didn't expect." Leora smiled faintly. "You are beginning to understand. Humans are underestimated even by themselves. That is why they are capable of so much more than anyone expects." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed across the outpost. Another wave of invaders had arrived, moving faster and more coordinated than the first. Elias's stomach tightened, but he did not falter. "Everyone, back to your positions. Remember, adapt. Be unpredictable." The humans responded immediately, using everything they had learned over the past hours. They redirected energy, reinforced weak points, and improvised new traps on the fly. Leora moved through the battlefield like a living shield, protecting them and striking with precision. At one point, Elias found himself face-to-face with an invader inside the energy lab, its weapon raised, ready to strike. For a moment, He froze. But then he remembered Leora's words. Humans excel at the unexpected. Using a nearby lever, he released a panel of electrical conduits, creating a temporary wall of sparks between them. The invader hesitated, giving Elias the chance to push it back and escape. He felt a surge of exhilaration. It was terrifying, exhausting. But he was learning, adapting. Humans were not just survivors, they were problem solvers, creators, fighters. And now, facing an alien force with unknown abilities, those qualities mattered more than ever. Hours turned into a long, grueling night. The invaders pressed their attack, but the humans and Leora held firm. Every success boosted morale, every setback taught lessons. By dawn, the battlefield was littered with the slowed or neutralized invaders. Most had retreated, regrouping for another assault. But Elias felt a quiet pride. They had survived the first wave, and they had done it together. Leora approached him as the first light of the suns touched the icy plains. "You see now, human," she said softly, "why your species is extraordinary. You do not rely solely on strength or technology. You rely on intelligence, imagination, and courage. These qualities are rare in the universe." Elias nodded, exhaustion and exhilaration mixed in his expression. "I see it now. We are stronger than we think, not because of power, but because of what we can do with what we have." Her glowing lines pulsed faintly in agreement. "And that is why I trust you, human. Because when the next wave comes and the battles grow harder, your kind will adapt, survive, and rise. You are capable of more than even you understand." As the outpost recovered from the night's chaos, Elias looked out over the icy plains. The invaders had retreated, but they would return. That was certain. But now he understood something he had not before. Humans could rise to challenges others considered impossible. With Leora's guidance and their own ingenuity, they could face threats far beyond the limits of ordinary expectation. For the first time, he felt not just fear, but confidence. Fear could be managed. Courage could be nurtured. And humans, he realized, had something no invader could predict: the ability to act unpredictably, to think beyond limits, and to rise when it mattered most. The battle had been won, but the war was only beginning. And Elias Harper, alongside Leora, was ready to prove that humanity was far more extraordinary than anyone, even humans themselves, had ever imagined. The cold morning sun cast a pale light over the outpost, reflecting off the icy plains in dazzling patterns. Elias Harper moved through the corridors, checking equipment and coordinating repairs after the first wave of invaders. The station had held, but damage was evident. Pipes were bent, power conduits had shorted, and several communication arrays were offline. Leora walked beside him, her glowing lines bright against the metallic walls. She had not slept much, if at all, during the battle, but her calm presence steadied Elias. "You humans are resilient," she said quietly. "Even under pressure, you adapt. That is what makes your kind extraordinary." Elias shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow despite the cold. "I've never seen anything like it," he admitted. "We improvised, we trapped, we fought, and somehow we survived. But I can't stop thinking about them. Who are these invaders? How are they so coordinated?" Leora's expression grew serious. "They are a faction that seeks to dominate. They have conquered many star systems. They rely on force, precision, and fear. But they cannot predict humans." "Why not?" Elias asked. "We're small, unarmed, and inexperienced compared to them." She stopped and turned to face him fully, her glowing eyes piercing. "Because humans think differently. Where they act with certainty, humans act with creativity. Where they plan, humans improvise. Where they rely on power, humans rely on courage and intuition. That is why you survived the first wave. and why you may thrive against them." Elias considered her words carefully. It was true. Their survival had not depended on weapons or numbers alone. It had been their unpredictability, their ability to think beyond instructions, and their willingness to take risks that had turned the tide. As they walked toward the observation deck, Leora's glow pulsed more brightly. "I will show you something, human. Something that may help you understand your potential." Elias followed her, curiosity mixing with apprehension. She stopped at a small chamber that hummed with energy, a device he had never seen before. "This is a synchronization chamber," she explained. "It allows me to share knowledge, experiences, and possibilities directly with your mind. It is not dangerous, but it requires focus and trust." He hesitated. "Trust? You mean you'll connect to my thoughts?" "Yes," Leora said simply. "I will show you glimpses of the future. Possibilities, not certainties. You will see what your kind could achieve and what could happen if humans rise to their potential." Elias took a deep breath, his hand brushing against the chamber. "Okay, I trust you." Leora nodded and stepped beside him. Her glow intensified as the chamber activated, sending waves of soft energy around them. Elias felt a sudden warmth spread through his body, followed by a strange lightness in his mind. He blinked, and the world around him shifted. He was no longer in the outpost. Instead, he saw vast human colonies thriving across multiple star systems. Ships moved gracefully through space, powered by technologies humans had not yet invented. Planets that had once been barren now bloomed with life. Humans worked alongside alien species, forming alliances, learning, and teaching. Elias's breath caught. This is the future?" he whispered. Leora's voice echoed in his mind. "It is one possibility, human. One path that exists if your species embraces courage, creativity, and cooperation. Humans have the ability to rise far beyond what they imagine." He saw humans designing powerful defenses, stopping threats before they could spread. He saw explorers venturing into unknown regions, discovering life forms and knowledge beyond comprehension. And he saw humans standing united against invaders, their unpredictability and ingenuity turning the tide of conflicts that seemed impossible. This is incredible," Elias murmured. "I never thought we could do any of this." "Your species doubts itself," Leora said softly. "But you possess the qualities necessary to achieve greatness. Fear, caution, and mistakes are part of your nature, but so are imagination, resilience, and courage. That is why you are capable of so much." The vision shifted, showing a darker side. Elias saw invaders spreading across systems, crushing colonies where humans had not prepared. Worlds fell to their relentless advance. Entire populations were lost where fear replaced creativity, where humans failed to adapt. "Not all paths are safe," Leora warned. "You see the consequences when humans do not rise to their potential. But the future is not fixed. You have choices, every human does. And every choice can shape what comes next." Elias's mind raced. The stakes were enormous, and yet he felt a sense of clarity. Humanity was not powerless. They were not weak. Their strength was in their ability to think, to adapt, and to act in ways the invaders could not predict. When the vision faded, Elias found himself back in the chamber, breathing heavily. Leora's glow dimmed slightly as she stepped back. "Do you understand, human?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "Yes, we're stronger than we think. But we have to act. We have to prepare." "Exactly," she said. "And that is why I have come to you. I can guide, protect, and teach. But the humans themselves must act. You are capable of more than any invader expects. That is the power of your species." Elias spent the next hours sharing what he had learned with the scientists and staff at the outpost. He explained the potential of humanity, the consequences of inaction, and the opportunities that lay ahead. Leora assisted, demonstrating her abilities and offering insights into strategy and defense. Together, they analyzed the invaders' movements, studying weaknesses and predicting patterns. Leora showed Elias how subtle environmental factors, wind, terrain, energy patterns, could be used to human advantage. Every plan relied not just on her powers, but on human thinking, creativity, and courage. Elias realized that humans had something no invader could replicate: the ability to act unpredictably, to improvise, and to solve problems in ways that logic alone could not anticipate. As the day turned to evening, Leora and Elias stood on a ridge overlooking the plains. The wind had calmed, and the icy expanse stretched endlessly before them. "Do you see it now?" Leora asked. "Humans are not ordinary. You survive where others would fail. You create, imagine, and adapt. And that makes your species capable of facing challenges that seem impossible." Elias nodded. "I see it. I see that we're capable, if we try, if we trust ourselves and each other." Her eyes glowed softly. "And that is why I will stay with you. I will guide you, yes, but you will act. Humans must always act. You must learn to trust your own courage, your own intuition, and your own creativity. That is what will make the difference." Elias felt a sense of purpose, unlike anything he had experienced. The fear and uncertainty of the previous battles were still present, but they were no longer paralyzing. He knew now that humans had a role to play, that they could rise to meet threats that seemed insurmountable. Over the next days, preparations intensified. Leora trained the humans, teaching them ways to use the environment and their own strengths to their advantage. She demonstrated defensive techniques, energy manipulations, and tactical thinking. But the humans were the ones making the choices, placing traps, directing energy, and coordinating strategies. Elias worked tirelessly, coordinating efforts, analyzing data, and preparing for the invaders' next wave. The outpost had transformed from a quiet research station into a hub of human ingenuity and resilience. One evening, Leora called Elias aside. "The invaders will return soon," she said. "When they do, you must be ready, not because I am powerful, but because humans are capable. Remember what I have shown you. Trust yourselves. You will be the difference." Elias nodded, determination burning in his chest. "We will be ready. We won't just survive. We'll show them what humans can do." She smiled faintly. "Yes, human. That is the spirit that will carry your species forward. Courage, imagination, and unity. That is what makes you extraordinary." As the sun set over the icy plains, Elias gazed out at the horizon. The next wave of invaders would come, and the challenges would grow. But now he understood something he had not before. Humans were capable of greatness. They could survive, they could adapt, and they could rise when it mattered most. And with Leora at their side, guiding and protecting them, humanity's potential was only beginning to unfold. The war was far from over, but hope burned brightly in Elias's heart. Humanity was not ordinary. They were extraordinary. And the universe would soon see what that truly meant. The icy plains of Kepler 452c were still, but the tension in the air was palpable. Elias Harper stood at the edge of the outpost, his breath forming clouds in the cold morning air. Today would decide everything. The invaders, relentless and cunning, were advancing again, stronger and more organized than before. Leora stood beside him, her glowing markings brighter than ever. She had rested briefly, conserving her energy, but her eyes radiated focus and determination. "They will come with force, human," she said softly. "But remember, your strength lies not in numbers, not in power, but in creativity, courage, and adaptability. That is what makes humans extraordinary. Elias nodded. His mind replayed the lessons Leora had taught him, the strategies they had developed, and the glimpses of humanity's potential she had shown him. Fear still lurked, but it was tempered by determination. He had seen what humans could do when they acted together, when they trusted themselves. "Everyone to positions," Elias called, his voice steady despite the icy wind. Scientists, technicians, and security personnel moved quickly, reinforcing traps, monitoring energy levels, and preparing defensive systems. Leora glided among them, assisting where needed, her presence a calming and motivating force. The first signs of the invaders appeared on the horizon, dark silhouettes against the glittering ice, their metallic armor reflecting the light of the twin suns. Their energy weapons glowed ominously, and their movement was swift and precise. Elias took a deep breath. "Remember, follow the plan, but be ready to improvise. Act when the unexpected appears." The invaders advanced in waves, confident and coordinated, but as they approached, they immediately encountered the traps and obstacles that the humans had prepared. Ice spikes shot from hidden vents, energy fields diverted their paths, and sonic disruptors caused confusion and hesitation. Leora moved ahead of the humans, creating protective shields, blocking attacks, and guiding their movements. Yet it was the humans' ingenuity that turned the tide. Elias watched as teams redirected energy, manipulated terrain, and used the invaders' momentum against them. A group of invaders reached the main power conduit. Elias acted quickly, activating a trap that redirected a surge of energy, sending the invaders tumbling back. "Yes!" he shouted, adrenaline surging. "Keep pushing! Adapt!" Leora's glow intensified as she moved among the defenders, her hands leaving shimmering trails in the air. She healed minor injuries, deflected attacks, and reinforced shields at critical points. But she never replaced the humans' decisions. She amplified them, showing them how to turn ordinary actions into extraordinary outcomes. Hours passed in a flurry of activity. The invaders were relentless, but human creativity and courage held them back. Elias noticed patterns in their behavior, predicting their movements and setting clever traps. Where the invaders relied on force and precision, humans relied on unpredictability and intuition. At one critical moment, a squad of invaders broke through a side entrance, advancing toward the lab. Elias grabbed a nearby conduit, rerouting energy to create a temporary barrier. The invaders hesitated, giving a team of scientists the chance to trap them using the terrain and improvised devices. The humans acted as one, combining intellect and courage in a way no machine or alien could predict. Leora stood at the center of the chaos, her glow radiant, her movements swift and precise. Yet her eyes always returned to Elias, guiding him, encouraging him. "You are capable," she said softly. "Remember, courage is not the absence of fear, but action despite it." Elias's heart raced. He had never felt so alive, so focused, so aware of every decision and its consequences. He realized that humans were not just surviving, they were shaping the battlefield with their creativity and intelligence. The invaders adapted quickly, but every time the humans adapted faster. They used the environment, the technology at their disposal, and their own ingenuity to stay one step ahead. Leora's guidance amplified their efforts, but it was humanity's unpredictability that frustrated the invaders. At one point, Elias faced an invader alone in the corridor, its energy weapon raised, ready to strike. He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then remembered Leora's words. Humans act unpredictably. Using a nearby control panel, he triggered a hydraulic mechanism, sending the invader crashing against the wall. He moved swiftly, disarming it and pushing it back into a trap. The battle raged for hours, but the invaders began to falter. Their coordination broke as humans improvised in ways they could not anticipate. Energy weapons misfired, advanced squads were trapped, and their movements grew hesitant. Finally, as the suns began to set, Elias and Leora surveyed the battlefield. The invaders were retreating, their forces diminished and disorganized. The humans had not only survived, they had forced the enemy to withdraw. Elias let out a long breath, feeling the exhaustion and exhilaration mix in his chest. "We did it," he said, disbelief and pride mingling in his voice. Leora smiled, her glow softening. "Yes, human. You and your kind did it. You have proven what I have always believed. Humans are extraordinary. Courage, imagination, and adaptability, these qualities cannot be measured by strength alone, but by actions. And today, your actions mattered." The humans cheered, their voices carrying across the icy plains. They had faced a superior force and they had survived, but more importantly, they had learned what it meant to act with intelligence, creativity, and unity. Elias walked among them, pride swelling in his chest. Scientists who had once doubted themselves now held their heads high. Technicians who had feared failure now moved with confidence. And Leora, radiant and powerful, moved among them with quiet pride. As night fell, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the icy plains in deep blues and silvers. Elias and Leora stood together, watching the stars emerge. "You were right," Elias said softly. "Humans are capable of more than we thought. Not because of power, but because of how we think, how we adapt, and how we act together." Leora's glow pulsed gently. "Yes, human. That is why I stay. That is why I guide. Your species has potential beyond comprehension, but only if you act, only if you trust yourselves." Elias nodded. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, but also hope. Humanity had survived. They had faced an unimaginable threat and emerged victorious, not because of weapons or strength, but because of creativity, courage, and intelligence. In the days that followed, the outpost repaired itself quickly. The humans, now confident in their abilities, continued to work together, improving defenses, studying the environment, and preparing for future challenges. Leora trained them further, not by doing for them, but by teaching them how to think, anticipate, and adapt. Elias watched as humans learned to combine intuition with strategy, improvisation with planning. He realized that this was more than survival. It was growth. Humanity was learning to rise to challenges that seemed impossible, becoming stronger with each test. One evening, as the twin suns set, Leora approached him. "The invaders will return," she said softly. "But now, humans are ready. They are capable of facing them, not because of weapons or power, but because of what they can do together. That is the strength of your species." Elias smiled, a sense of pride and determination burning in his chest. "We will be ready, and next time, we won't just defend. We'll show them what humans can do." Leora's glow brightened, a sign of approval. "Yes, human. That is the spirit that will carry your species forward. Courage, imagination, and unity. These are the qualities that make humans extraordinary. Never forget that." As night fully settled over the icy plains, Elias looked out at the stars. The universe was vast, full of unknowns, and full of challenges. But he no longer felt small or powerless. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived. They had risen to the occasion, proving that courage, creativity, and determination could overcome even the greatest threats. And with Leora by their side, guiding and protecting them, humanity's story was only beginning. They were no longer ordinary. They were extraordinary, and the universe would soon see what that truly meant. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the responsibility and the thrill of the achievement. Humanity had survived the first test, and they had done it together, using intelligence, courage, and imagination. He knew that the real adventure lay ahead, but for the first time, he felt ready. The invaders might return, but humans were no longer the same. They were stronger, wiser, and capable of more than anyone, including themselves, had ever imagined. And that, Elias knew, was only the beginning. As he stood on the ridge with Leora, the stars above sparkled like beacons of possibility. The war was far from over, but hope burned brightly in the hearts of humans. They had proven themselves, and the universe would take notice. Humans were extraordinary. They had survived. They had risen. And they were ready to face whatever the cosmos had in store.